You can, and you explain and tell your topic. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a million, Aya, for inviting me and for the organisers having me. And I'd like to say thanks to everyone for joining this morning. So as Aya said, my name is Craig Coffey. I am from the Institute of Technology Carlow in Ireland. And today I will be presenting some practical applications for exercise recommendations for children with autism. So I suppose I'll just run down about me first. So I graduated with a sports science degree, and I'm currently completing my PhD in the Institute of Technology Carlow in Ireland. So I have submitted my thesis 8 weeks ago, looking at the effects of an exercise intervention for children with autism. And I hope to sit my PhD viva in the coming weeks. So I began my thesis in 2017, so nearly 5 years ago now, and worked with over 100 children with ASD across 12 primary schools or elementary schools in Ireland. So a bit more about me. I'm a strength and conditioning coach in our Gaelic games, and I've been a coach for 8 years, working with high performance teens and adults without autism spectrum disorder. With the autism then, I have set up my own exercise classes for children, and these have been group classes of children 6 to 8 in a group for children aged 4 anywhere up to teens 18 years of age. I've also started some individual one-on-one personal training classes, and with COVID at the minute, that's what we're focusing on at the minute with the one-on-ones. So I will give you, I suppose, exercise practical recommendations that we have used in our research, but also exercise recommendations that we have used in our group classes and one-on-one classes, because we have more freedom to implement different methods rather than the research, which is more strict and stringent, following that one routine. So some publications, the first one to note is one that I will speak about most in this presentation. So it was exercise programming for children with autism spectrum disorder. So this basically was to give strength and conditioning coaches, exercise specialists, one document that they can refer to in regards to communication, the environment for the exercise setting, what types of exercise we can do on week 1 versus week 8 with some progressions. Moving on then, our second publication from the PhD has been a comparison of fitness levels between elementary school aged children with autism spectrum disorder and aged matched neurotypically developing children. And I answered a question about motor. What motor skill would you, I suppose, coach or train first? And when speaking to teachers, the first thing that they had said to me was that children holding a pencil was a difficult task. So that fine motor control, holding the pencil and trying to write in class. What we have found from this paper is that the development trends between children with autism and without autism are not similar. And especially looking at a 20-meter sprint and a long jump or a standing broad jump type activity, the development trends are not similar. And from ages as young as 4 years of age, we should start to implement some exercise intervention for children with autism. Lastly then, about me, before I move on then into our presentation, some international conferences that I've presented at would be the World Autism Conference, ACSM in 2019 and this year online. Autistic is a big conference in London in the UK, specifically for children, teens and adults with autism, and I suppose research around autism. So that's, I suppose, a nice one for even yourselves to look out for in the future. It's usually around May, June or July in the summertime. And this year it was online and it ran very smoothly, and some very good research. So I won't dwell on this too long. I definitely went through what ASD is and set this presentation up nicely for me. So as she said, it's a pervasive developmental disorder characterized by persistent deficits in social communication, social interaction, and restricted repetitive patterns of behavior, interests, or activities. And some of the most common autistic traits then that I would see in an exercise class or an exercise setting would be the likes of developmental delays, social confusion around what we are doing or how to interact with other children in the class. Fear of eye contact was one that I noticed a lot, especially with children with more severe symptoms of autism. It seemed as though they weren't looking at me or weren't looking at the iPad or pictures that we were showing as demonstrations for exercises. But yet, when we told them to go do the exercise, they were able to do it competently, and they knew the steps from maybe jumping activities or throwing activities and catching. They knew how to do everything, although they were not looking, I suppose, at me or at the visuals that we had. A need for routine, and this is one that I am going to, I suppose, show the more visual side of it that we use in both our research and our exercise classes. We see a lot of repetitive behaviors from children. So it could be maybe hand flapping, running, jumping. Some kids, mostly females that I've seen, are biting. So the hands, the fingers, or even some of the equipment that we have. Moving on then, so I suppose why exercise, or why are we looking at exercise, or even why did I pick exercise? So as we all know, exercise has physiological benefits, psychological benefits, and can improve the quality of life. Exercise can also increase muscle strength, muscle endurance, and aid recovery from health problems, while it can also decrease childhood diseases and risks for later life illnesses. So that would be, I suppose, exercise for our general population, for those with and without autism. But more specifically then for children and adolescents, teens with autism, we can see some research coming out to show that physical activity or exercise can have a positive improvement on mental health, physical health, self-regulation, cognitive development, and social emotional functioning. And these are, I suppose, additional benefits to exercise for children with autism or adolescents with autism. I suppose from our benefits of exercise, we need to find out of adolescents or children with autism, how do they perceive exercise to benefit them? Does it, I suppose, improve, or do they feel that it improves any of their skills or behaviors? Does it improve their physical fitness? If it's not perceived to be improving any of these things for a child or an adolescent with autism, or they don't see the benefit, you're not going to get buy-in. And again, that's the same with our general population. If people don't perceive that exercise is working, they're not going to keep going along with it. So this paper, I suppose, highlighted perceived benefits and enjoyment of exercise for adolescents with autism. So they said that exercise can improve their social skills, self-regulation, behavior, and academic performance, while they also perceive exercise to decrease their disruptive behavior and stereotypical behavior. However, one point to note from this research is that some autistic adolescents reported that they were too afraid of getting hurt during physical activity. And they also said that they were too busy to partake and that exercise was boring. So us as exercise specialists, coaches, maybe even teachers, we have to make exercise enjoyable for children and adolescents with autism, but we also need to be able to make exercise accessible and I suppose create a safe environment for individuals with autism, so as they're not perceiving exercise to be dangerous or an area whereby they are losing control. Moving on then, I suppose from beliefs and perceived perceptions, we're also looking at some barriers to exercise. And exercise interventions have said to be narrowly focused, complex and difficult to implement, or costly. And moreover, these have been also reported to fail to meet the perceived needs of the community. And I suppose one thing to note here is that exercise interventions are said to be complex and difficult to implement. And a lot of the research at the minute around exercise interventions for children and adolescents with autism is high cost interventions such as swimming, horse riding, martial arts, which all require specialized facilities, a lot of money, and they're not really in a naturalistic setting for individuals or children with autism. So they're not, I suppose, seeing these environments on a day-to-day basis compared to a school environment whereby they're in school Monday to Friday. They know the individuals in their school, they know their classmates, they know their teachers, they know the whole environment of the school. Compared then to a swimming pool where it might be noisy, there's a lot of kids maybe that they don't know, there's more than one coach. So I suppose it's an unnerving situation, not an environment that is maybe suitable for a child with autism. Similarly then, horse riding may be too expensive for some families. For me anyway, I would have to travel 30 minutes plus to get to a horse riding facility. So I suppose it's not accessible to every individual or every participant who may want to get involved in that exercise. So as I said, high cost interventions, they're avoided by parents or guardians. So the likes of the horse riding or martial arts may be a high cost intervention whereby we might need to spend money on specialized equipment for safety, such as helmets or boxing gloves or pads. And then additional research is needed on well-controlled study designs, larger sample sizes, and the quality of information provided. So around research at the minute, we can't, I suppose, take one article of research and replicate it. There's not enough information around how the exercise intervention is performed, what exercises are being completed, and for how long are children submerged in this exercise. Is it 10 minutes? Is it 20 minutes? Is it 30 minutes? There's very vague information around the specifics of exercise, how it's taught, how it's implemented, and whereabouts maybe it is implemented as well. Some studies that I have come across and stating large facts that exercise can improve stereotypical behaviors or physical fitness have small sample sizes, so 1, 2, 10 participants. So we need to have research for children with autism with larger cohorts of maybe 50 plus individuals included, so as we can, I suppose, generalize statements to children with autism. And I suppose one point to note from Aya's presentation was that when you meet one individual with autism, you've only met one individual with autism. So we're trying, I suppose, to bridge that gap and make it as general as we can with larger cohorts, and maybe even breaking our analysis or our studies up into specifics of mild, moderate, or severe symptoms of autism. So I suppose getting down into how to implement an exercise intervention with children with autism, firstly, we're looking at communication and how do we communicate our exercises or our activities, how do we portray them to children with autism or individuals. So we're looking at videos and pictures first off. So we want to use videos to display what exercise or activity is to be performed. We also use pictures to show key phases and stages of the exercises. and I'll show that in the next couple of slides as to what types of pictures we use, or maybe text, visuals, or videos. Throughout our exercise, then we want to encourage and make sure that the children are performing to their best of their ability. So we need to encourage children to keep up the intensity and keep their focus on the activity. So show them how to do it again and again, and make sure that if they're failing, that we can also fail too, and that they can try again. So in some activities where it may be a throwing activity with a ball, instead of having one ball throwing into maybe a hoop for a basketball throw, I will have multiple balls that if we miss the first one, we always have a second ball to throw again and try again. Trying to make exercise fun and I suppose accessible to all children with autism. In the encouragement side of it, when we were implementing our exercise interventions in schools, we had 6 children. We had myself, the coach, and then we had 3 individuals from the school. So we had a teacher and 2 assistants who were, I suppose, helping me throughout our exercise. So they were encouraging the children. So there was always 3 individuals encouraging children how to do exercise, and there was myself as the coach showing or demonstrating how to do the exercise again and again. So most of the time, me as a coach, I would have been doing the exercise with the children. So as I was nearly a point of contact that they could look over to and see how to do the exercise while they were also performing it as well. So looking then at, I suppose, some of the visual aids that we would have used. So we would have used some to-do lists here on the left-hand side. So these would have been our main phase exercises that we would have had to complete during our 1-hour exercise session. So each class, children always had 6 exercises to complete. These exercises were just stuck on with Velcro to a sheet, and these sheets were accessible to all children. So it was nearly their own storyboard or their own activity list on what to do. Next, then we move on to the second picture, which is key phases or stages of the activity on how to do the exercise. So this exercise was jump squats. So all the child had to do was squeeze the ball between their knees or balloon, squat down, so bending their knees, and then jump, jump, and jump, while also keeping the ball squeezed between their knees. Now, this picture was always left out for children to reference throughout the activity. So we had it at maybe the start and the end of where they were going to start and finish this activity. So when children finished, they could always refocus, look back at the pictures, the key phases on where to start and where to end. With our to-do list and our picture schedule, we also used our iPad, and we used an application called Story Creator app. And this was a nice little booklet that we could create videos inside it, text, and also input some audio into it, so as the children could watch a story on how to do the exercise. Again, we included these pictures in the iPad on the Story Creator app. So it was a replicative tool with the video as well, and some of our audio text. Once we finished our exercise, we could then remove our first exercise from our to-do list and put it on our done list. So this schedule then, I suppose, helped the children time out our exercise class. So once we had 1 exercise done, we only had 5 left to do. And once this board was complete or full with our 6 exercises, we were then moving on to our cool down. So we were finished our main phase or most of our activities. In our one-on-one classes, we use some more visuals and give children, I suppose, more freedom to choose exercises themselves. So just on the left-hand side here on our first picture, on the bottom we have a whiteboard, and this has all our exercises wrote out for each child. So these classes are individualized. So it's not like our group classes in the research side of it, where it's more structured. This one, while it is structured in how to lay out the class, it's not, I suppose, tied down to specifics in exercise. So the children, I suppose, could wipe out any of the exercises that they could complete. And once we had the whiteboard completely empty, that was it, our class was finished. The children also had a choice board, and we can see that more clearly here, as to a break in exercise on what they could do, a fun activity. So we always have Jenga blocks to build towers. We have Lego blocks, again, to build towers or whatever the child wants to build. We always have a trampoline, and we have a Swiss ball or a Bosu ball where the child can just roll out on, and some children find it very therapeutic. I suppose, rolling on the ball and that pressure down through the ball, and I can also then push down on the child and roll them forward and backwards. In these green cards here above our choice exercise, these are exercise cards, I suppose, for children to choose. I usually give them an option to choose 3 or 4 exercises that they think are, I suppose, the most fun or the most attractive to them. So they're becoming the creator of their own exercise program, essentially. So they can choose 3 to 4 exercises. We'll go do that exercise, and then they can come back. And if there is 1 or 2 more that they really like and they want to do, they can. So again, empowering them to be the creator of their own exercise or their own exercise program. And this also then gives me a chance, I suppose, to see what exercises and what activities that child likes or prefers. In our third picture here, then we have our cool down exercises, and we have just some, I suppose, high intensity exercises that the children can choose from. Again, I let the child choose 3 or 4 exercises from each of the pictures. And again, this is giving them the power, because they've done maybe 6 or 7 of my exercises already. Now I'm giving them a choice to choose their exercises. So it's nearly like a bargaining tool that I can use, or pick an exercise, and then they can pick an exercise. Always in my classes, I will have my iPad, I will have some sand timers, and I will have a digital timer. The digital timer will be the timer counting down our 1-hour exercise session. So the child can always refer to this timer as to how long they have left. For our sand timers, we use these as timers for the exercises. So we have exercises that we may complete for 30 seconds, for 1 minute, or for 2 minutes. And we will always have then our iPad for our story creator app, for some videos and some pictures that we can demonstrate or show how to complete the exercise. We also then use ladders, agility ladders in classes, and always we will have some type of footprint or handprint to demonstrate, or I suppose mark out the area that we want the child to touch or run through in our ladders. Now, obviously for our children that may be doing exercise for a long period of time, we can remove these footprints. And I suppose progress the exercise that the child has to think about how to do this or how to perform the exercise without the assistance of our footprints. But these footprints are very easy to stick down or implement and demonstrate how to complete the exercise, and children will follow the footprint if it's easily accessible, or the handprint. They nearly know what to do straight away when you put it down. Visuals we like to use, as I have already said, and I suppose color coordination. Then we use cones, I suppose, to demonstrate some activities whereby children may have to run. So we always have our traffic lights. So we ask them, how does mom and dad drive in the car? When they see traffic lights, when they see green, they go. So we need the children to run as fast as they can. When they see yellow, we have to walk really slow, or we might do walking on the moon. Okay, so really slow motion. And when we see red, we stop. And we can implement this color cone system in any activity with our green for go and our red to stop, because children will always associate in our classes red with stop. And I think it's a nice one. All you need is 3 cones, and you can carry them around with you the whole time to show a child or represent to a child when they can move or when they need to stop. So our exercises are mostly based around running, jumping, landing, throwing, catching, and crawling type activities. And really we can, I suppose, create any activity or any exercise with these 6 core movements. In our warm-up phase, this is usually used as an icebreaker for children to come from their class into an exercise setting, or if they're coming from home into our exercise classes. Usually our warm-up will last 5 to 10 minutes, and we try and incorporate some fun games into exercise. So just a video here on this game is called Snatch the Bacon. So we're getting children, I suppose, to still think that they're in class by pointing out body parts, so heads, shoulders, knees, and toes. And when they hear snatch the bacon, they're going to grab the beanbag as fast as they can. So throughout the exercise, we're always trying to create a fun environment for the children. So we're following along with myself or teachers or parents, and also getting the kids then to call out some of the activities themselves. So when we shout knees, toes, they touch that body part. And then when we say snatch the bacon, they grab it as quick as they can. And it, I suppose, creates a small bit of a fun competition for the children to snatch that beanbag as fast as we can. Moving on then to our main phase activities. So while I had a picture of some ladders, which would be more of a, I suppose, a serious activity, or we're trying to focus on that strict movement, we always try and include maybe 1 or 2 fun games as well as in our main phase. So from a ladder where we may be working on footwork, like the speed and agility ladders, we can incorporate then, I suppose, speed and agility footwork into a fun game such as this one. So this video on the left-hand side from here where my mouse is, we're going to have children coming and they're going to be called the cats. On the right-hand side from where my mouse is now, we're going to have the cats come, or no, sorry, let me start again. So on the left-hand side, we have the mice. On the right-hand side, we have the cats. So the idea for the mice is to come out and catch a beanbag, which is going to be a cheese. So mice like cheese. Cats like mice, so they have to catch the mice. So it's basically a game of tag. So I'll just play the video. On this side here, we have the cats coming. On the right-hand side, we have cats coming out to catch the mice, while also trying to catch the beanbags. So this is a fun game for children while we're working on our speed, agility, coordination, and then trying to get in some hand-eye coordination, as well as watch out for a child coming to tag. We also then incorporate some throwing type activities with beanbags into hula hoops. So again, we're making exercise accessible, and we're making exercise low cost with beanbags, hula hoops, cones. Here, the idea is to run back to me as a coach, take a beanbag, run to your cone, and toss the beanbag into the hula hoop. We can make this more difficult by having colored hula hoops and only allowing a blue beanbag into a blue hula hoop. And we can also then further progress this to have hula hoops further away, so children have to toss the beanbag a larger distance, or a greater distance, sorry. Like I said, we always have agility ladders, so running, bouncing, jumping, side to side running, incorporating our feet markings or footprints to demonstrate on how to do the exercises. We use hula hoops then as well, and these would be a progression from our agility ladders. When we do some jumping type activities with the ladders, we can then incorporate the hula hoop to do some skipping type activities. One thing, I suppose, as a coach that I have found over the last 5 years, children don't jump with 2 feet together. They like to jump 1 foot or run when we're trying to get that jumping type activity. So you'll see in this video some 2 boys running around the hula hoops, but really they're meant to be jumping. So we use these cones. So it's squash the cone is what we're basically looking for to help or I suppose visually interpret how to jump with 2 feet together like a bunny. So the idea is to stick 2 feet together and jump onto the cone, squashing with 2 feet always. So that's the activity, or I suppose easier way around showing a child how to jump with 2 feet. So like I said in the video on the outside, you see 2 boys running through the hula hoops, but they're actually meant to be doing what this girl is doing in our jumps. So you can incorporate the cones into our hula hoops and also into our ladders to, I suppose, keep that bunny hop, the technique of the bunny hop correct, so as that child is jumping 2 feet on each cone. Moving on then to some other type activities that we use in our one-to-one classes. First off, on the left-hand side, we have a balance beam. The idea here is to walk across the balance beam with a counterbalance in our kettlebell. We're squatting down to collect the beanbag and walk back down the balance beam to drop the beanbags. So idea is to get beanbags from one end of the balance beam to the other. With this activity, I suppose this one would be an intermediate type exercise. We can do this exercise without the kettlebell, whereby the child just walks across the balance beam, collects the beanbag and drops on the other side. As children get more proficient on the balance beam or stronger, they have better balance, we can then include the kettlebell for this exercise. The next exercise or the next video that I will show here on the right-hand side can be then a larger progression or the next step to a balancing exercise, whereby children have to use a brush or a broom handle to collect cones while also maintaining balance on the balance beam. So while we're working on balance, we're also working on our squatting movement. We're also working on hand-eye coordination, while also holding that squat in the bottom position for a long period of time until we can get that cone up onto our broomstick. So again, this one would be advanced type balancing, an advanced exercise for children who have maybe completed 8 weeks of exercise or even 10 weeks of exercise before we can get them on the balance beam collecting cones like this. Next, then we have some throwing type activities. The first one I will show is similar to what I was speaking about earlier. So collecting a beanbag and tossing into a hula hoop. So we always have the red cones where we should stop. So we're carrying on the visual aids of our traffic light system into our throwing type exercises, whereby red means stop. This is where we have to throw from into our hula hoop. So again, you can progress this by moving the hula hoop back or further, that there's a larger throw, or we have to run a further distance to collect our beanbags. Our next progression from this throwing would be onto our ring toss, whereby we have a more accurate throw onto one of the little sticks, whereby we can collect points. So in the middle, we have 100 points, we have 10 points, 25 points, and then we have 50 points left and right. So here we can have children competing against myself or parents to collect as many points and to get as many rings onto the sticks as possible. Our third video or third exercise then will be a balloon keep up. So the idea here is just to keep that balloon up off the ground. So we use tip, tap, and keep it up. So 3 quick words or 3 quick sentences. Tip, tap, keep it up. And I always hear children doing the exercise while also repeating these words: tip, tap, keep it up. And as long as we can keep them active and keep them, I suppose, on task, this exercise will last for a long time. We will see in my exercise programming tables in the next coming slides that the idea of this activity is to progress it from individual to then maybe getting a volleyball type exercise or activity or game towards the end of our program or further down the line as a progression. The next phase or next progression for this would be our balloon keep up with the addition of hoops or targets that we might have to put the balloon through. Here we can incorporate the use of our hands, we can use our head, we can use our feet, our knees. So any body part that we can hit the balloon with, we will move that through the hoops. But again, we're trying to keep the balloon up off the ground as much as possible, or let it touch the ground a minimal amount of times. So again, we can have this throughout our hall or throughout our activity center with many hula hoops or different targets that we can pass through. Like I had said or mentioned already, we use agility ladders, and this is our bunny hop that we're always trying to look for. We can progress this then to a rabbit hole where we have a larger or a larger jump to complete. So we have a hula hoop at a higher height, so we have to jump over. We could also incorporate some hurdles, some low hurdles, or multiple hoops, just getting parents to hold them. We can then progress this jumping into our skipping type activity with our hula hoop. So trying to swing it around like a skipping rope and jumping then in through. So this would be our first, I suppose, phase of our hula hoop skipping, where we step in 1 foot at a time through. We can then progress this to our jumping with 2 feet into the hula hoop. So it's going to be a lot quicker and a lot faster movement to complete. We can then incorporate some side-to-side jumping using a rope, using our ladders again, or maybe even using a broomstick. We videoed this in our back garden during lockdown as an activity that kids could do at home. Parents will find a rope for cheap enough. It's a low cost activity, and if we don't want to buy a rope, we can always use our brush or broom handle to complete this activity. So moving on then to our cool down. So our cool down then will be lasting 5 to 10 minutes, again, similar to our warm up. I suppose the more exercise that we can get into our children during that 1 hour session, the shorter the cool down period will be. So we're always aiming for at least 5 minutes. Our cool down is usually completed in a quiet environment, so only myself as the coach will speak or count down our time to complete the exercise. We usually complete our cool down in a circle, so all children can see myself and each other. And we can always include teachers or assistants or parents to assist children get into some positions. So we usually do some stretching, static stretching, butterfly stretches, or lying as long as we can like a pencil. And this, I suppose, is to get children back down from that exercise high and get them ready to go back into class where it is not allowed or not a activity-driven environment. It's more of a sit down and complete your exercise in your workbook. So like I said, we're going to speak a small bit more in detail about exercise programming, this paper that we published in the Strength and Conditioning Journal. So it's exercise programming for children with autism spectrum disorder and recommendations for strength and conditioning specialists. So some of the next slides will have snippets of tables and figures that we included in this paper. So the objective of this was to create a document that can be used as a guideline when beginning an exercise intervention for children with ASD. It can also be included for adolescents or teens with ASD, as one of the girls that worked on this paper had a older cohort of 13 to 18 years compared to my research, which was completed on children aged 4 to 12 years. We also wanted to outline areas such as the environment, communication and instruction style, and some practical guidelines when implementing an exercise intervention. So first off, the exercise setting that we're, I suppose, looking to create. The first point we need to notice, or the first point we need to acknowledge, is the noise in our environment. So if we are using an exercise hall, is it echoey? If we're implementing an exercise intervention with children with and without ASD, if there's too many children, we might need to include some ear defenders to block out that noise for children. Instead of using a whistle, we might need to use hand signals to get children's attention, or we might use them cones, whereby we'll go with our green cone and our red cone. We might need to limit the number of children in our class. For my research, we limited the number of children to 6 per class. In my group classes outside of college, we only take 8 children per group class, or then we use our one-on-one classes, and they would be, I suppose, better for children who have more sensory stimulation to that noise. We also want to encourage children to be quiet, and I suppose it's hard to create that quiet environment during an exercise class when you want children also to have fun. And if they're having fun, that is the main goal that we're looking for. And that's what's going to keep children coming back to our classes. So we need to, I suppose, minimize the noise, or the amount of noise that can be created in our exercise class. So again, if it is that hall or an exercise gym setting, we might want to move to a different area or a different room if we can, to minimize that noise. Lights then is another thing. So we might need to look for a setting that has tinted glass. We might want to turn off the lights, or we might need to cover some windows if possible, if it is too bright. In Ireland, we don't really have that problem because we don't get too many sunny days. So we don't have to cover windows, but the lights are one thing that we might need to turn off. One thing I've found is that when we have lights on, especially the long LED lights, I can't hear them, but some children with autism can hear like a flickering in the lights. So that might affect a child's attention. So while they're trying to complete the exercise, they're focusing on that light and not how to complete the exercise, or they're not focusing on me as a coach and what I'm telling them to do. Touch then is our next one. We need to include a range of different equipment of balls of different textures. So the likes of spiky balls, we might have some balloons, or we might have some normal plastic balls, or soft, spongy foam balls. We also want to avoid unnecessary contact. Some children don't want contact with ourselves or with other kids. So we might need to adapt our exercise, or minimize that maybe hand holding in an exercise class or an activity. We might need to cut that out and do a different activity, or adapt it for that one specific child. Heat then is another one. And I've found this very difficult, especially with younger children. So you need to ensure adequate ventilation and room temperature. When I have children in an exercise setting, we usually start off our exercise class with our warm-up, And once our warm-up is complete, I will take off my jumper. And this, I suppose, is to show children that they can also take off their jumper too. Obviously, once they have a t-shirt on underneath, we don't want them sweating or becoming too hot, because it will affect them during their main phase. So usually I will start off the warm-up with my jumper on, take it off then once we've finished our warm-up, because some children will sweat a lot, and it will, I suppose, affect them, and then they do nearly get conscious about how much the exercise is having an impact on them during the class, and it might then deter them from completing exercise down the line. Visual, then, we want to avoid setting up all equipment before the class. So we want a clear setting or a clear space to work in. We want to clearly mark out our boundaries for each activity. So if we need to have a throwing line, we might have our red cones whereby a child has to stop here. And then if the hall is too big, we might want to incorporate some dividers to shorten or enclose our space, so as we are having our children, I suppose, closer to us, rather than some who might want to run off to the other end of the hall and stay there rather than come up and listen and partake in our exercise class. The exercise setting in our research would have been a lot more accessible to children with autism because we were working in an autism class. So usually an autism class is set up that a child is working one to a desk, so their own desk. They're setting with a lot of schedules, boxes that would be specific to each child, and they know their room. It's very colorful. It has lots of pictures and visuals for them to interact during the school day. There's also sensory rooms in in all of the autism classes. So if a child was misbehaving due to sensory simulation, so if it was lights affecting them, or if they didn't like a specific activity, we could send them maybe to a sensory room to come back down from that high. So with the likes of the lights and the mirrors or the soft spongy seats. Further then into our study that was published, we're looking at a needs analysis of questions for both the parent and before exercise. So questions that we may have for parents would be, does your child have a repetitive movement or a repetitive habit or calming movement? So we need to be aware of these. So I suppose we're not stopping it. If a child is flapping their hands as a calming movement, we don't want to stop that. We want to, I suppose, promote it so as the child can last in our exercise class for as long as possible. We're looking at likes and dislikes of the child. So if they like Superman or Batman, maybe that is a way for us to have that line of communication with a child. Or if they like Lego, we can get them to complete an exercise and then let them play with Lego for 2 minutes and then come back to do an exercise again. So if they had a previous experience of exercise, what was it? Was it like? Was it a good experience? Was it a bad experience? What is your child most interested in presently? And this was, again, back to their likes and dislikes, a nice one to, I suppose, understand the child and have some bargaining tools to use with a child. So if you do my exercise for 5 minutes, we can play with Lego for 2 minutes. Then finally, questions for parents. So does your child have any aversions to visual, auditory, or tactile sensations, or is there any other information that they feel might be relevant for us to know? Then for ourselves as coaches, some questions that we need to ask ourselves. So is the area suitable for exercise, or the exercise that we're going to perform today? Are all the visual representations ready for our class? So our pictures, our videos, have we got them ready to go straight away? We can't be messing around with some Velcro pictures when the children are there to do exercise. And is all the equipment ready? So it should be aside, out of the way, that the children, I suppose, can't take and run off and do their own thing. We need to have it cut away, but also laid out that we can just grab and put out straight away. So if it was hula hoops, we have them at the ready, but they're not accessible to anyone else but ourselves. So this, I suppose, would be a week 1 exercise program that we would start off with. So the likes of our warm-ups, our main phase, and our cool down. So we start off with our traffic lights, our cones again. So green is run, yellow is walk, and red is stop. Moving on then to jumps and landing, and then we have our main phase. So our 6 exercises with our exercise, what it's targeting, and then our instructions on how to complete the exercise. So some of our exercises then would be to progress to a game towards the end. So we have our beanbag scramble, which is throwing, catching, and grasping. So this game, the aim is to create an environment where we can complete the activity or the game of basketball. Crab walks then, so this is anti-rotation and core bracing, so moving in a crab walk position. This can be performed backwards, forwards, or side to side. And then when we progress it, we want to get a game of crab soccer going. So adding in a ball to our game. Our third exercise then that I'm going to focus on here would be our balloon keep up. So this is upper body pushing. We had that in our video. And the aim here is to maintain the balloon in the air with part of the body, such as hands, head, or feet. And the end goal is our game of volleyball. Moving on then to our week 8 progression. So we have, again, our traffic lights with our 3 cones, but we can add in some new cones, such as our blue cone, which could be bunny hops, or our white cone, which could be a bear crawl. Again, you can play around with this with as many different types of movements as you like with whatever color cone you want. You could have an orange cone, which could be a crab walk. We have floor is lava, so this is multiple jumps. So we could have all hoops placed around in a circuit and children jump from hoop to hoop and not making contact outside of the hoop. So this is our multiple jumping in a bunny hop type activity. Our volleyball then, we have 2 teams of 3 on either side of the room, divided by a center line, and children must keep the balloon up in the air, and we try then to score some points in our volleyball type activities. Again, setting up our room, we have our videos that children can access throughout the class. So make sure that it's available to children. It has to be readily available or close by that a child can interact with it. If they forget how to do the exercise and you're with another child, or you're showing another child how to do it, well, then the child has access to our pictures or our videos on how to do the exercise again. Again, like I had earlier on, we have our throwing type activities, our squatting type exercises in our Snatch the Bacon with our head, shoulders, knees, and toes. We use beach balls. Now, these, I suppose, beach balls wouldn't be the best to use because children will bite them. So I found that our balloons would be our best option to buy because they're cheap and we can pick them up anywhere, I suppose. Our beach balls, we started out with 6. At the end of week 1, I had 2, and at the end of week 3, I had none. So this is where we bought our balloons, and again, you can pick them up anywhere. We have our jumping type activities again with our hula hoops and our ladders. Again, we can set up some activities that we are going to start off with. So this first one in the large picture on the left, we are set up for some throwing type activities. So just throwing our beanbag into our hoop. So this would be a week 1 type exercise. And this is our first exercise, so we can have it set up ready to go. We also have some, I suppose, obstacle courses whereby we have hula hoops again to jump through. We have our tunnels that we can crawl through, and then we also have our cones and our ladders that we can jump, hop, or run through side to side, or different types of movements. I suppose adapting then, or where we start for children with autism, if you've never worked with a child with autism, this is one that I've come across by Sylvia Angel Education. She always starts off with our biggest building block of understanding a child with autism. So understanding where that child is coming from, their likes, dislikes, asking the parent questions about that child. Then we need to, I suppose, pick an environment that may be suitable for that child, or if we have multiple children, what would be the best type of environment for these children. Moving on then to our communication next. So what types of communications will we need? So not always, not every child, will like our videos or our pictures. So we might need to come up with a different type of communication. So some children will like videos, others will like pictures, some will like both. So we need to, I suppose, tailor our communication style to the children that we're working with and what types of communication we can use. Sensory then, so again, is the lights going to be affecting a child? Is the hall too big? Is there too many children in the room? Behavior then, so what types of behavior can we expect to see with that child? And once we have behavior, sensory, communication, environment, and understanding, I suppose, filled and known to ourselves, we can then reach our target of inclusion for children with autism. So I'm just going to run quickly down through, I know we only have about 4 minutes left, just some of my research, and I would ask, please don't photograph any of the tables that we have here, as it will be used for my thesis, and some of it is unpublished work at the minute. So starting off with a reliability result. So using our 5 tests of a 20-meter sprint, standing broad jump, sit and reach, flexibility and hand grip strength, and our stork balance, we have good to excellent reliability on these 5 tests. Looking, I suppose, at day 1 versus day 2. So this is 2 days apart, compared then to a longer period, reliability in our stork balance does decrease to less than 70%. We have a low coefficient of variance for our 20-meter sprint, standing broad jump, sit and reach and hand grip. However, our stork balance is very variable. So I suppose we cannot rely on our balance as much as we can some of the other tests. And then in this reliability study that we're currently undertaking, we are giving some smallest worthwhile changes for coaches that would, I suppose, be of practical value to show what improvement is significant after an exercise intervention. So we have 0.15 of a second for a sprint, 6.35 centimeters in a jump, 1.6 in a sit and reach, 0.73 in a PSI in hand grip strength, and our stork balance then we're looking always for, or at least a 3.89 second improvement. Just quickly then through some of our pre and post testing results, we found a significant decrease in BMI, a significant decrease in our sprint time, a significant increase in a broad jump test, a significant increase in a sit and reach flexibility test, a significant increase in hand grip strength test, and this would be one to note then for our teachers with our pencil holding, and a significant increase in our stork balance test. So like I said, significant improvements noted in all 5 physical fitness measurements, but we did see larger improvements in children with severe symptoms of ASD. Finally, then we have behavior results. So we found more so for children with significant or with severe symptoms of ASD, they noted the most significant improvements. So in stereotype behaviors, in social communication and social interaction. While children with moderate symptoms of ASD did realize a decrease, they weren't as significant as our severe groups. Just some exercise participation. Children, this is one child specifically, starting off with, I suppose, 15 minutes of exercise at week 1 versus week 8, sorry, we get up to our full 60 minutes of exercise. And this child maintained that for a full week at 3 days, while also realizing some increases in fitness measurements and decreases in stereotypical behavior. Just finally then to wrap up, what our teachers said, that our exercise intervention was fun, engaging, challenging and flexible. For some children, it was the highlight of their week. children in class were calmer, they listened more or better, they had less timeouts, their concentration improved, and they had less meltdowns. While their behavior improved, their motor skills improved, some children realized self-improvement and greater attention skills. Our exercise program was rated 5 stars by teachers and children, and this is one that I will always take with me, I suppose. And then finally, children themselves said that they liked to play together with other children. They found the exercise intervention to be fun, and they felt themselves that they were stronger, and they liked the role play in the types of games like cat and mouse type activities. Okay. Thanks everyone for, I suppose, listening for that hour. I hope it was beneficial to you all. And if we have time for questions.